Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Wildflower Valley Farm. Today I want to take you guys on a tour of my front yard. I have 4 raised beds in my front yard, and even though they're a hot mess, I apologize for the fact that they are not cleaned up and they are not beautiful right now. But I want to just, like I said, take you guys on a tour of the front yard and show you guys what those raised beds look like, and maybe talk a little bit about what my plans are for them this fall. It is the middle of summer. We are right smack in the middle of July. It's actually getting close to the end of July, and so a lot of things are, suffering from the heat but doing the best they can, and I am in the midst of planning for my fall garden. So the next video that I do after this one, I'm actually going to give you guys a kind of an idea of what my plans are for these raised beds. But today, just let me kind of show you guys around so you can see what they look like. So we'll start with the first raised bed that is closest to the house, and this bed is mainly herbs. You can see here I have some sage, and then I have quite a lot of dill that reseeds itself every year. I planted it once a couple of years ago, and you can see from these seed heads, if I don't harvest them, they just fall down into the bed and reseed. So I have perpetual dill growing in this bed. There's also quite a few weeds at the moment. I've been trying to pull some weeds today, but I'm not going to be able to get them all today. This is oregano that has gone to flower. It is a perennial. It continues to grow, so I don't have to replant this, and it may drop seed. I really am not sure, because what is growing is all actually growing out from the base of the plant, which you can see right in here. I need to trim this back. It will actually bush out and be a little healthier if I trim it back. So that is on my project list. And then this tall stuff right here is bee balm that has bloomed itself out for the season. It was beautiful blooms earlier, last month and on into the first part of this month, but now it is working on making seeds, and it is also perennial. It grows back from the base of the plant that you can see right there, but it'll also drop seeds and start some new plants sometimes. And then this bed is the one in the middle of the 3 that are in the main part of the yard here. It, again, like I said earlier, these raised beds are a hot mess. They definitely need some work. I really haven't had time to keep up with them this year like I should have. I did better with them last year, but they are what they are, and they do fine. This chard that you see growing here, everything that's in kind of this area here is chard that I planted last fall and wintered it over, and it's doing pretty well. It does wilt quite a bit in the heat, but it generally doesn't die, and it still tastes fine. It doesn't get bitter like a lot of other greens do in the summertime. This chard that you kind of see here is some that I planted last spring. So all of this is actually second year technically. And as you can see, most of it is doing quite well. And I will leave most of this until it has produced itself out, because we get a lot of food off of this chard. These leaves that are buggy like this, I'll just pull these off and either compost them right here in the bed or feed them to the chickens. And the more I pull off, the more that it grows. So, if I pull this off, It just gives the plant more energy to grow some big, pretty, shiny leaves like this one. And this end of this bed actually doesn't have anything in it but weeds and one little leftover beet from last year. I missed that when I pulled these out. This third bed is actually the one that has plants in it for this season, actually. If you're not counting the chard, even though I'm still getting produce off of the chard, it's technically last year. This is a patty pan squash that it doesn't get as much sun in the front yard as my garden in the backyard does, so it has been kind of a slow grower, but that is actually probably a good thing because a lot of the squash that I have in the backyard are suffering from squash vine borer, and so far this does not seem to be suffering from that, and it may just be because it had such a late start that they weren't interested in it when I first put it out, and now that it's late enough in the season, I'm hoping that they won't bother it. Over there are some purple beans. If you're not familiar with those, they taste like most green beans. I mean, all beans have slight differences in flavor, but they taste basically like a green bean. And the bean pods themselves are purple. You can see that one there. But when you cook them, they turn green, which I told my 6-year-old that they are magic beans, and she thinks that it's just the most fabulous thing ever to watch me cook them so that she can watch them turn from purple to green. These beans here, these two are the only two that sprouted, the only two that came up from something called a painted pony bean. They are a stringless bean and they taste very good. I'm kind of disappointed that only 2 of them came up. I'm going to save seeds off of this one, off of these, and try to plant some more next year because they do have a really good flavor. And these 2 plants are actually quite prolific at producing beans. So like I said, I'm kind of disappointed that there are only 2 of them that came up this year. In the middle there, you can see where like I mentioned before, a lot of times will pull off these buggy chard leaves, and I just toss them down to compost in place. It helps to deter weeds and, of course, add some nutrients back to the soil. And then at the end of this bed, I have some more chard that is from last fall. I planted it, like I said, last fall and wintered it over, and it is doing very well this summer. And I intend to leave most of the chard, possibly all of it, until it just produces itself out and can't do any more, and then I'll plant some more. On this side of this same bed, I have a zucchini, and like the patty pan squash at the other end, it kind of got a late start just because this bed does not get as much sunlight as some other parts of the yard. And it does not seem to be affected so far by the squash vine borers, so I am hoping that it will survive and keep producing zucchinis for us after the ones in the backyard that are dying from the squash vine borers. Back at this end of the raised bed, that is the patty pan squash that I showed you a little while ago. I have this one as well. It's another patty pan squash that I've just kind of left it to see what it would do. When I planted it, it was the same size as that one, and it just hasn't grown very well, and I'm not really sure why. Last year I had things planted in this bed that did very well, so I feel like it's not a lack of nutrients. So I'm not really sure why it has grown so slowly, but I'm just kind of leaving it alone to see what it does, and hopefully it'll do its thing and grow before the end of the season. This raised bed here was actually, I call it a prototype. My brother built these raised beds for me, and he misunderstood what I was asking for when he built this one. This is the first one that he built, and he built it too narrow. I still use it. I can still make it work, absolutely. It's not, like I said, I call it a prototype because it was actually more of a misunderstanding, but it was kind of a test. And I don't have anything in it right now except a few weeds. This is some catnip, and I don't know, there's some other things in there that I can't really identify. And what you see, all this brown stuff here, is actually some composting banana tree leaves. I like to use these banana tree leaves. This giant banana tree here, there's actually several of them in this group here. I like to use them for compost and kind of help kind of mulch, use them as a mulch layer to deter weeds. All of my raised beds are not really self-watering because they do require a water hose, but they water themselves whenever I have the water turned on. I have this 4-way split, and the only outdoor spigot that I have is in the backyard. So what I do is anytime that I turn the water hose on in the backyard, you know, to water the garden in the back or to fill up water for the animals, it feeds this 4-way split, and then this splitter feeds the raised beds with this hose. Is going to the first raised bed. They all have a similar soaker hose in them. This is another one you can see. And that soaker hose, there are 2 25-foot soaker hoses in each raised bed so that I can run them back and forth multiple times throughout the bed. So like I said, anytime that I need to turn the water on in the backyard, it's watering these raised beds, and it keeps them from drying out, and I don't have to carry water to them here in the front yard. And the last thing that I want to mention to you guys is, you may be wondering what the PVC piping is, and it's kind of in a little bit of rough shape because it wasn't, I'm not saying it wasn't put together well, but at the time that I did this, all I could find were these plastic brackets. And as you can see, they are not really appropriate for what I've got going on here. Several of them are breaking, and these pipes are not really staying where I want them to be. You know, this should be up here. So I've got to do some work on this to figure out how to make it work the way that I want it to work. But the reason these are here is because in the wintertime, I use these 2 raised beds. The one closest to the house I really can't because some of the plants in it are too tall to be able to put these hoops on them. But these 2 raised beds that are closest to the road, that one and this one, I use them as greenhouses, and any plants that I can get started in them before the days start getting too short and too cold, then I'll just cover them with plastic and let them serve as greenhouses throughout the winter. I will be sure, once I get those set up this winter, I will be sure to show you guys what they look like so you can see what I'm talking about. Another thing on my project list, like I said, is to repair these. The PVC where it connects together is actually holding together just fine because it's glued with PVC glue. I don't use them for water in any way, so it doesn't really matter that they're not necessarily a tight fit throughout, but they are held, all of the connections like this are held together with PVC glue. The main thing is where they are attached to the bed. I have some metal brackets. I'm going to take these plastic ones off and replace with metal, and then I'll have to figure out what to do to keep these from sliding down. I'm not sure if it's going to be easier to put a screw through it. I'm kind of afraid that putting a screw through it may cause it to split. So what I may do is just raise these up to where I want them to be, and then maybe put a screw under it that will block it from falling down. If you guys have any suggestions or ideas for that, please do let me know in the comments below, because I welcome those suggestions. So that is going to be all for this video. Be sure to follow me for upcoming videos so you guys can see what's going to go on in these raised beds this fall. My project list for the next few weeks does include getting these beds cleaned up and prepped and ready for a fall garden. And my next video after this one is going to be an unboxing video so that I can show you guys what all I received in the mail just the other day, my seed order, and see what I have planned for this fall garden. Thanks for watching.